Hey, Claire.
Hello, Jean. How are you today?
Good, thank you. I apologize for this ridiculous getup of what I'm wearing. I've got a whole black eye stuff going on. It's a whole thing. It was no big deal. Everything's great now, but I look ridiculous for the next couple weeks.
Okay, well, hopefully you didn't get punched. Hopefully it's
No, nothing like that.
good, good, good.
There was no violence involved. Oh,
Wonderful.
okay. So it's been like 6 months since you were here. I think you were around episode 130. This is 184. And so the questions are different, largely different. And I want to drop you right into a scenario as soon as you tell folks a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Clare Price. I'm the founder and CEO of Octane Growth Systems, and we are a fractional marketing consultancy that focuses on helping business owners, and particularly exiting business owners, to grow value in their organization using the Octane Growth marketing operating system.
Excellent. Okay. So most of your clients probably virtual. You don't go to their facility very often or ever. But let's imagine that in this case, it's day one and they're only 5 minutes from your home. So you're actually going to walk in there on day one of this engagement, Monday morning, 9 o'clock. When you walk into a situation or a new engagement, what's the dream scenario you're walking into as a fractional CMO? And what's the nightmare scenario you're walking into as a fractional CMO?
I would say both dream and nightmare are fully dependent on the team
Mm-hmm.
culture, the team atmosphere, and the team communication that we're dealing with. Because if all of those things that we would look at as a fractional CMO, whether it's marketing, whether it is a need for growth, whether it's a need to change tactics, build a new strategy, all of that's dependent on the team. So the dream scenario is we have a harmonious team, we have a strong leader, the team is in sync, they're working together. For example, we find that a lot if we've got companies that we go into that are already running on EOS, and so they've been working on that team dynamic for a while. The nightmare scenario is just the opposite. The team is in complete disarray. They're pointing fingers. They're in conflict. Marketing and sales absolutely hate each other
Mm.
and sometimes refuse to communicate, which is the nightmare beyond nightmares. So you got to solve that first.
All right. So let's stick with this client for the rest of this scenario. Just one more question. And we're going to go as far into the future as this podcast ever goes, which is 90 days.
Okay.
So it's not day one, it's day 90. Someone at the client, someone at the C-suite level at the client, pulls you aside and say, hey, I was thinking about you yesterday. I want to mention that, I understand like the general value prop for why we brought you in, but for me, the real aha moment of what you did for us or what you're doing for us was X.
Um, Enabled us to see our company and our clients and the way forward from a completely new perspective,
Yeah, okay, keep going.
so that we are now able to communicate with those clients and those prospective clients in a much more full, transparent, and engaging way. Before, we were talking about ourselves. We were, leading with ourselves, our products and our services. Now we're talking about our clients, the benefits that we offer them, how we can actually transform their business with results. And that's what gets them excited about working with us.
Mm.
That's what Octane would do for that client.
All right, so let's change scenarios. You're giving a speech, you're on stage, it's a big conference, you're the keynote speaker. There's 250 people in the audience. They all just came out of corporate and became fractional CMOs yesterday. They're brand new, fresh out of the oven, or fresh into the fire, depending on how you want to think about it. Now, as we're going through your speech, I'm going to give you 3 sentiments, and then you just have to finish them,
Okay.
however long it takes you, okay? So you're talking to this audience, they're experienced, but they're new to the fractional CMO world. And you say, look, as fractional CMOs starting out, one thing you're going to be shocked by is
How little business owners that you're talking to, particularly if they're in small business or the mid-market, the lower mid-market, really understand marketing.
hmm,
You're going to be shocked to find that a lot of times these business owners are really only focus on one small little element of marketing. Like maybe they want to get their website redone, or they want to get their lead generation. They want a lead generation campaign to bring in, 10 new leads in 2 months. They are very narrow focused, often on one or two tactics, and really won't understand the strategic value that you can bring to them unless you take the time to educate them effectively.
Okay. So then the next part of your speech, you get to and you say, look, what this sounds like it builds on what your last thing, but we're going to go in a different direction. One thing you're going to find is that many of your clients just don't understand what.
Well, as I said, they don't
Mm-hmm.
understand marketing, but very specifically, they don't understand why they have to spend the time to create a blueprint and create a roadmap for marketing, why they can't just dive in and start doing stuff. They don't correlate the pain they've gotten from marketing, which is lost time, lost money, with that activity of just diving in and doing stuff.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. All right. So they don't match up the pain and frustration of not making any progress with the fact that they're just scattershotting everywhere.
No, they're honestly, Dean, and I think you and I know this as well, and all your audience does. They're looking for that magic bullet, right? They're going to
Right.
try 25 bullets, and one of them is going to be the magic bullet, even though we know that doesn't exist unless a proper foundation is laid, and then you might find it. You might find the buried treasure
Right.
only if you have the right map.
Right. Okay. So you're at the end of this speech now. Some intern is trying to like signal you to get off the stage. They're bringing up the music like at the Oscars. But by God, you're going to say one more thing. And so you say, look, before I leave you, I got to give you this one piece of advice. When it comes to getting new clients, what?
This is my best piece of advice. You've got to get into their world and get out of yours, which means you don't want to walk in and wave your hands and fill their heads with a lot of marketing jargon and even marketing accolades and anything related to marketing. You want to step into their world. How do they think about the world? What are they looking to do? They've stepped into asking you for advice. They want to hear that advice or those ideas in their language, in their approach, and in the day to day life that they're really living in their business.
Right, right. All right. So they finally managed to get you off stage, even though you didn't want to leave. And so you go out onto the conference room floor with all the booths and potential customers that you might sign there. Okay. When you're talking to these prospects, what do they tend to, when it comes to marketing, what do they tend to overrate and what do they tend to underrate in importance?
First thing they overrate is lead generation, 100%. And they tend to underrate really understanding the true deep nature of the prospect that they need to reach. If they understand even the concept of an ideal client profile, it's very surfacey. It's
Mm-hmm.
very centered around demographics, and very centered around, a few little data points. They really haven't built a full profile of who that client is, and so of course, going back to the advice I gave the audience just a few minutes ago, they can't step into that person's world.
All right. What do you mean by they overrate lead generation?
Um, that's the myopic focus. How quickly can you get me leads?
Mm,
And how quickly can, what's the program? I need 10 leads today.
right.
How fast can you get those to me? And I think one of the biggest mistakes, I'm going a little bit off on a sidetrack, but I think it's very
Okay.
important. One of the biggest mistakes that marketing people do is falling into that client's trap and not being honest with them and transparent with them to say, we are not going to be able to get you 10 leads in 2 weeks. We need to lay a foundation. It's going to take X number amount of time, and you can base that on what the program is, what your experience has been with that industry, with the sales cycle they have. But they really want give me leads and get the phone ringing the next day. And we need to be really honest and transparent with them
Right.
that that is not going to be the way their marketing is typically going to go.
Okay. So then, that's an example, I guess, but as you're talking to these prospective clients in this big conference, right? You're having these one-off conversations. What's a red flag and what's a green flag when you're talking to a prospect?
I would say the red flag is desperate urgency to get money, to get clients in the door. Um, you can
Mm-hmm.
certainly do a better job with that by hiring a BDR team and getting salespeople on the phones immediately. That's not going to happen with marketing. And if that's the pressure on that company, any marketing person that comes in and tries to do good quality strategy, a good strong roadmap, is probably going to really be under pressure and not have good results.
Right.
The
Okay.
green flag is the opposite, someone who understands that laying a good strategic foundation is going to lead to results. Um, Someone who wants to look at your track record, see the kind of results you've gotten for people in the past from, say, their industry or maybe their type of situation, and is willing to listen to the recommendations and advice that you're wanting to give them.
Okay. So now, excellent answer, by the way. So, Claire, we've reached the point in the podcast where if there are two guests, which are typically the guests ask each other a question. Uh, we don't have a second guest. There was like a last minute reschedule. That person just recorded an hour ago.
Okay.
So you have an option. Um, you can ask me a question. I don't know what you'd want to ask me, but or I stumbled upon a line in a marketing podcast 2 weeks ago that has been stuck in my head, and I will ask you your thoughts on it.
I'll
It's your
be
call.
I'll be happy to take that line and see where we go.
The line was, and this was a company. It was basically about productizing services. They were a marketing agency. The line was, this person's position was, and why they had narrowed down and niched down and narrowed down and niched down their offering is that companies expect insiders to be generalists and outsiders to be specialists. What do you think about that?
I think that's an interesting perspective, and I think to a certain extent that's true. Particularly if you're talking again about that mid-market company in maybe the five
Mm-hmm.
to 50 million range, that they're going to hire someone who can wear a lot of hats because as the business
Yeah.
owner, as the management team, they're wearing a lot of hats. So that makes total sense to me. I think it's a great opportunity for fractionals to come in at various places in the organization as a CMO, as a CFO, as a COO, because they can provide that level of expertise. And I think the reason that that company should consider a specialist outsider who is truly a fractional executive rather than just a specialist that's maybe in an agency or just a solo consultant, is that fractional is going to come in with a higher level of strategic expertise and big
Right.
picture thinking that is really important to an organization that already has quite a few generalists in it.
All right. Yeah, I thought so too. It's been stuck in my head. So like, it's I like lines where, and I mean, I come up with a lot of these, and people will get back
Uh-huh.
to me on my newsletter and stuff. It's like I always knew exactly what you said, but I'd never actually like heard it said. And I had the same reaction with that. I said that is exactly true. Why did I
Yeah,
never like articulate
100%.
that before?
Okay, so I do have a question then for you, Dean.
Oh yeah, sure, I guess.
How do you come up with those brilliant opening lines that you have practically in every single newsletter you put out? I mean, you just have to open them.
Oh, okay. So I have an entire. I run through it. I've done it for so long and so many times. I run through the entire checklist, like a 360. I run through it mentally in like a couple of seconds. But I've been asked by a few companies, few clients, to break it down how I do that process so that they can start using it themselves. And I've like been dabbling here and dabbling there in sort of building out the process. But it comes down. I think I have something. This is unscripted, I promise. But there was something where I was just walking through how to do that, and it comes down to there are a few things that I want to check. I want to make sure that I'm being that the words are assertive but not aggressive, and also at the other end not like don't hurt me kind of language. Uh, in any sort of, I specialize in writing the first thing that a stranger might ever read from a
Hmm.
particular company, right? So
Yes.
I live just in those first few moments of someone's attention. Ideally, they get drawn in and then they read the blog and look at the website and all that stuff. And other people wrote that. God bless them. But somebody needs to hook somebody, and so there's a lot of this is a there's a couple of concepts around it that I've sort of come up with over the years. One is that the confidence, which is to say, in any sort of interaction, especially with a messaging and marketing in a stranger, with uh, there's a certain amount of confidence that has to be established, and you have to provide almost all of it because strangers are not going to like put confidence in you to bring you up to the level it needs to be.
Yeah.
You have to show up with all of that because
Right.
they're never going to invest any of their time or attention or make an emotional investment in a company that they don't know or a message that there's also a certain amount of labor. I think
Uh-huh.
scales, right? And there's a certain amount of labor that has to be put into communicating something. And the more someone is a stranger, more that prospect is a stranger to you, the more of you don't have to do just all of your thinking and feeling for that idea to be communicated. You have to do almost all of their thinking and
Hmm.
feeling for them.
Right.
So they only have like a little tiny bit to lean in order to get it. So assertiveness, uh, confidence, doing almost all of their work, and then using other writers will judge a reading level. You can get like a Kincaid Fleisch, or oh, they count words. I don't count words. I count syllables.
Ah.
I need to communicate everything in the absolute fewest number of syllables possible. Even even hidden syllables. Like some words, technically they only have two syllables, but there's really three because there's a
Oh.
th in there, right? You can
Uh-huh.
sort of feel the syllable in your chest. And so I
That's
can look
brilliant.
at it.
That
People
is
will give it to
brilliant.
me, and I say, like, this is like it's to me. It sounds or looks discordant, right? It's like I
Yeah.
don't have much musical talent, but I can look at a sentence and I say, like, the weighting is wrong on this, right? It's
Uh-huh.
not like, and I'll like here make this little change right there, and then it's like smack, it goes right into someone's head without them sort of knowing that. I
Uh-huh.
mean, ideally, they've read everything I wrote without ever deciding that they wanted to read it, and if they have any conscious thought about it at all, they get to the end and say, I didn't even intend to read that whole thing, but I did. That's kind of the job, right?
That's wonderful. I love the
There's a whole
syllables.
bunch of
I think
checklists in my head that I go through to make sure it satisfies all of them.
fantastic.
I don't know, it's a blessing and a curse. You'd never want to be on a road trip with me. I can't help like fixing all the billboard headlines as we drive
Oh,
out
do
loud.
you?
It's just one of those things, right? Anyway,
That.
okay. So Claire, these days, who should be reaching out to you, and what's the best way to get to you?
So the people who should be reaching out to us are people who, business owners who are looking to grow, scale, and exit their business. And what we are focusing on helping them do is drive accelerated value creation. So we want to make sure that they are getting full value in their organization and building value as opposed to just driving revenue and top line growth that can sometimes even be more expensive than they think it is. And best way to reach me is you can give me an email at Clare, CLARE, at Octane, OCTAIN growth.com.
All right. All right, Claire, thanks so much for being here again. I love it when people come back. You're part of a relatively small group that's been on 2+ episodes, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Dean. I feel the same, and I
Hmm.
enjoy hearing from you as often as I get to see your lovely newsletter.
Awesome. Thank you very much, ma'am. And I'll talk to you next time, hopefully.
Okay.
See ya.